I'd like to now invite Dr. Vicki Marks to rally us with her presentation. And she's going to give us her top 10 reasons for the IR residency. Dr. Marks.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak. I may not be able to speak, though, because I am so cold in this room, I can barely stay together. I actually do have a conflict of interest, and my conflict of interest is that I am a diagnostic radiology program director. But I see this as forward progress and share Dr. Vatican Cherry's enthusiasm. So anyway, I don't think I have these in any particular order, but I have thought of 10 good reasons. I mean, a lot of them have been presented to you, but some of them haven't, to pursue the IR residency. First of all, it will provide greatly expanded procedural IR training. And as the breadth and scope of our procedures gets more complex and varied, I think that's necessary. The current model, by the end of your fellowship, is typically, if you count a rotation, as 4 weeks. So you have your fellowship year, and that's 13 4-week rotations, and then maybe you've done 3 ahead of time, so we get 16 procedural rotations. In the IR residency, depending on how it's structured, you'll get 28 to 32. So that's a tremendous amount of more IR experience. It's going to have expanded clinical training compared to what we get now. It will preserve the general PGY1 internship, and I agree with Dr. Vatican Cherry that a surgical or a medical internship is preferable over a transitional year. It's going to add IR inpatient consult service. It's going to add an IR clinic experience. It's going to add a specific ICU rotation required in the program requirements. And it's going to allow for rotations on related clinical services that I think will be varied depending on the program. I think, and this is an important point that hasn't been raised in this session, that it's going to provide for a very robust research component throughout the residency, particularly the integrated 5-year residency, where residents in the PGY2 to 6 years can participate in research projects longitudinally with their attendings. And that means that you're going to have more stuff in the pipeline. When you're working in an educational environment where each trainee is only there 1 year, it's really hard to get good research off the ground. I think that it will then benefit the attendings because the divisions of interventional radiology can consistently become more academically productive, and that may lead to an increase in grant funding for IR, and IR is the scope of the specialty throughout the country. Next, and this is something that's increasingly important, it's going to provide time for good patient safety and quality improvement component to IR training. It's a huge push in hospitals and in AC GME that quality improvement and patient safety are integrated very well into residency training programs. And again, in a 1-year program, it's going to be very hard to do that. So it's going to be in line with pay for performance push by MedPAC and AC GME, and it's going to be in line with increased demand for patient safety goals related to JCO. So I think this is something that we haven't really touched on much yet, but is very important. 5, it's going to maintain the robust, I'm using the word robust a lot, diagnostic radiology experience during the PGY2 to 4 years. And again, this is critical. Being a good imager is critical to being a good interventional radiologist. So for the first 3 years, the DR and the IR resident imaging rotations are identical, and it's important that IR residents pass the core exam. What happened there? I don't know. Anyway, it's also going to ensure that these imaging skills are maintained after that PGY4 year and the last 2 years. Mammography and nuclear medicine rotations will be maintained according to regulatory needs. And integrated programs are going to allow for a limited number of diagnostic radiology electives in the PGY5 year. And call responsibilities for IR residents can include diagnostic radiology call in the R4 year, which I think is really important. I think John mentioned that. It's going to maintain good relationships between the diagnostic radiology and the interventional radiology residency programs, because the diagnostic radiology residents towards the end of their 3rd year of residency hopefully won't be taking calls, so they're studying for their boards and feel like their programs are supporting them. And then it's a great way to maintain diagnostic skills in general radiology during that fourth year of training. I think it's going to allow for more effective integration of the longitudinal milestones into IR training. The Diagnostic Radiology has just this year started implementing the Milestone project of ACGME, and the Milestones have been instituted to ensure that it used to be that residencies just used to have to prove that they had a process to create a good doctor. And now residencies have to be able to prove that the doctors they create actually are good doctors. And that's why the milestones were put in place. And I think it's very hard to achieve significant milestones that prove you're a good interventional radiologist in 1 year. So they're going to have integrated milestone projects in the integrated program and in the independent program. Yeah. 8. So one thing that I think people have also lost sight of is that the reason the core exam, the reason the ABR paradigm for the certification examination process for radiologists got changed was a fundamental belief by leaders in radiology that it's impossible to have everybody be a general radiologist, and that practice patterns across the country in many places were leading towards more specialization, where in a practice profile project they did from the ABR found that the vast majority of radiologists practice at most in 4 of our clinical subspecialty areas. So the core exam at the end of the 3rd year was really designed to encourage earlier subspecialization and a 3-2 model of training, where in 3 years you did general radiology and supplemented that with 2 years of specialized training afterwards. And this is really the first formal implementation of that vision. So we're not doing anything that leaders in radiology hadn't thought of before. I think, as Joji so eloquently put, I think that the IR Residency will train professional physicians who are ready to practice and compete in the marketplace clinically and procedurally and in research. I should have added research there. The dual certificate, I shouldn't say dual, I should say IRDR certificate, will assure competency in imaging and in intervention. Interventional radiologists have to be present on site. You can't do a TIPS procedure remotely from India over the internet. And I think that that's a real selling point for this. I think that it provides a lot of interdisciplinary care experience during training and PQI experience, quality improvement, which is going to be a real part of all our careers moving forward. And finally, I think that it is important to stand up and say that interventional radiology is different from diagnostic radiology and has matured to the point that this is the right thing to do for the specialty. We're going to have better training, we're going to have better patient care, and it provides us with a better investment in the future. Also, if and when Medicare cuts funding for resident training, as may happen, there's a proposal in President Obama's current budget for a 10% decrease in the indirect costs. And hospitals are get in a position where they have to look at what they're going to cut. It's very likely that they will cut advanced fellowships before they cut primary certificates. And the IR-DR certificate is a primary certificate, a primary specialty. And I think it provides more security for maintaining the training pathway. So that's it. I think we do it because it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marks. And I think we have a lot of information in this workshop, and hopefully you can bring it back to either your private practice or in your academic practice and start the process with getting those stakeholders, talking to your diagnostic radiology program directors, talking to your chairs of your department, and also your collaborators, those vascular surgeons, hepatologists, transplant surgeons, and getting them on board so you can secure those rotations. And remember that each institution will be unique, and then just focus on your strengths to actually get this up and going. And you have a lot of resources here through the SIR and the Student Resident Committee to help you along with that. So I appreciate your attendance, and thank you to all of our speakers.